Rachel Zegler. She is full of shit. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You're probably familiar with the actress Rachel Zegler. She's been a prominent figure in the entertainment industry, particularly as a consequence of her role as Snow White in Disney's disastrous 2025 remake and her previous work in West Side Story. She's been criticised for focusing on her personal views and experience in public forums, demonstrating a particularly self-absorbed nature, and this was particularly the case concerning the Snow White remake. Her comments about reimagining the character and her responses to fan backlash have been clearly self-centred. Interestingly, in a 2025 interview with Jimmy Kimmel, she referred to herself as a narcissist. This isn't an actual genuine admission by her, but rather an attempt at hyperbolic self-deprecation in an attempt to manipulate the audience. She doesn't realise what she is, but she's aware of what narcissists are. And there will be occasions where a narcissist will say something like that, but it's never done when they're on their own or in a moment of contemplation or self-reflection, because the narcissist doesn't do that. You'll notice that this supposed admission was done in respect of controlling the audience, a little bit like this one's wife's admission of "I'm a fraud." She doesn't truly think that she is. She's utilising that for the purposes of manipulating the audience. Zegler's response to negative feedback about the Snow White remake has been polarising. She's been accused of dismissing traditional fans, showing dismissiveness and a haughty arrogance, and focusing on her own vision, demonstrating delusion and self-entitlement. It demonstrates, to my mind, an absence of emotional empathy and an inability to handle criticism, which is a consequence of a threat to control. Through many of her social media interactions, she's clashed with fans and critics, and this demonstrates a pattern of seeking validation and fuel and reacting strongly to perceived slights. It's also the case that her expectation that her vision for Snow White should be accepted without question demonstrates a deep-seated entitlement on her part. This perception also is heightened by the film's poor reception and her continued defence of it, which, to my mind, shows her as prioritising her own narrative over that of audience expectations, demonstrating what really truly matters for her. Her comments about the original Snow White being weird and her role in modernising it have been seen as dismissive of cultural heritage, which again reinforces the entitlement narrative by which she operates. She has found herself at the centre of a divisive debate and has made her actions subjected to heightened interpretation. Her tendency to engage in public disputes with critics and fans is demonstrative of her absence of emotional empathy and her complete inability to accept differing opinions. Criticism, a differing opinion, is viewed as a threat to control. The emphasis on her vision for Snow White, at the expense of broader audience appeal, reinforces the fact that she is self-centred and self-absorbed. She's known as difficult, and this shapes public perception of how she behaves. You witnessed some rather strange facial expressions that she pulled in the Snow White movie, which seem exaggerated and demonstrative of a lack of authenticity, but also might be perceived as actually mocking the film itself, once again reinforcing the self-entitled attitude of this woman. Indeed, some of the strange faces that she pulled were brilliantly lampooned by the overlaying of the narrative from Carl from Sling Blade, brilliantly performed by Billy Bob Thornton. If you've not watched that film, you need to go and watch it, and in particular the scene about fried potatoes. I guess I'll give myself some of them fried potatoes. And also, just as an aside, go to YouTube and look up In the Actor's Studio interview with Billy Bob Thornton. And Billy Bob is talking away about his career, and then he's encouraged to undertake the transformation into Carl. And the shift in terms of facial expression and also voice is An amazing transformation, well worth witnessing. Anyway, back to Zegler. She is, to put it quite bluntly, full of shit. And have a look at this. At the moment, Rachel Zegler is playing Eva Peron in Evita, performing in London. And as you've seen from this clip, the cast are receiving the appreciation and applause from the audience. The other cast members are smiling, acknowledging that, but you'll notice that Little Miss Make It All About Me's reaction has to be heightened. We have the dramatic clutching of her hands to her chest, the sobbing as she receives the fuel because she's so overwhelmed by the gratitude of the audience. There'd be many people who would say, well, she's given a stirring performance and she just is overwhelmed by the response of the audience. But this is a professional performer and she undertakes this role regularly. And whilst you might have seen certain performers being similarly overwhelmed, do not lose sight of the fact that they may well behave in a similar manner because they are narcissists too. This is simply the response of a narcissist to the receipt of positive fuel by way of adoration, that she behaves in a particular way to continue to make it all about her, so that all eyes are directed to her, not the other cast members. They're simply appliances in the world of Rachel Zegler. But the faux crying may remind you of somebody, of course. But this overdramatic response is wholly representative of the disconnect between the way that Rachel Zegler's narcissism believes that she ought to behave and how one ought to really respond to the receipt of such applause. It is entirely performative, it's melodramatic, it's over the top, and it is the fact that her narcissism is reacting in this fashion because it doesn't truly understand the appropriate way of responding, and instead exaggerates it so that it makes it look like she's so moved by this applause, so overwhelmed, but nobody else in the cast is. They're just accepting it. Of course, she's the star of the show, but nevertheless, the narcissism propels her towards this self-aggrandizing behaviour, whereby she sobs and then laughs, which of course causes other members of the cast to touch her in a concerned way, which is precisely what she wants because it signals control and provides her with the fuel that she seeks. She's a self-absorbed narcissist, full of shit, and here is another excellent example of that behaviour, writ large in the way that she responds, in the way that she makes it all about her with the faux sobbing. It's just driven by her narcissism. Many people will be taken in by it, feeling sorry for her, thinking, oh, how lovely. She's overwhelmed by the gratitude and appreciation of the audience. But understand, because we know what she is, we know that it's performative. We know that it's not genuine. We know that it's just yet another manipulation by a self-absorbed narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.